Hello, my loves. Hello, hello. Thank you for coming back to see us. Tonight is Monday. We are getting, you know what? We're having the most fun. I say this to you every single time, but I absolutely love this show. This, of course, is The Tipping Point, and I am Joanne Johnson, your host. And tonight is no different than any other night. I have the most amazing guest with me, Brad Trackman. I am so excited that he's here. If anybody has been under a rock, I say this all the time, but for anyone who's been under a rock who doesn't know who Brad is, he is amazing. He's been on the Late Late Show. He's been on TBN with Huckabee. He's been, oh my gosh, he's been everywhere. He's been Comics Unleashed, Gotham Comedy Live. He's from New York. He's been on probably every show that's available to people to be on. He's performed in over 500,000 people. He's toured with people like Joan Rivers and Robin Williams, Dana Carvey, and Weird Al Yankovic, and more. His comedy is amazing. It's clean. It's funny. And he is here tonight. And we're going to go ahead and bring him on right now. Actually, no. I lied. You know what I want to do? I want to play a clip of one of his really great sets. They're all fabulous, but let me just look over here for a second. I got to pull this clip up. Let's go ahead and take a look at something that he did with Dry Bar Comedy.
So everybody, I came up with a list, all right? This list that I'm going to tell you, figuratively speaking, not literally, but figuratively speaking, I came up with a list of things people should be ostracized from society for at least a day. Are you ready? Are you ready, Provo? All right. Here we go. If you drive in the left-hand lane under the speed limit, you should be ostracized from society for a day. Get the heck out of the way. If you wish somebody happy birthday on Facebook, and don't use an exclamation point, you should be ostracized from society. What are you thinking? That's a mean thing. You can't push the one extra button. You're basically going, happy birthday. That's horrible. If you have a man bun, you should be ostracized forever. Forever! This one's, if you include me on a group text, come on. I hate that. Not you guys. You guys are probably the ones doing it. How about this? If you're at a stoplight, you got the bass thumping, the hardcore rap really loud, and you're white, come on. Stop fronting. Stop fronting. If I hold the door open for you and you don't say thank you, you should be ostracized. That's a horrible thing. Am I your doorman? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. If you eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and don't gain a pound, you should be ostracized. Forever. All right. So yeah, I'm a Jewish guy. I mentioned that. I'm Jewish, you know. I was a little scared about telling you guys that. I didn't know what to expect here in Provo. I didn't even know if you guys ever saw one before. I'm like, Jews, we're not tough, we're not macho, but we're smart. We'll actually invent things to make up for our own inadequacies. Circumcision, that's ours. That's right. We said, hey, if it can't be big, let it be cute.
I mean, for real. Okay. That's a good one. I love that entire set. And there was more, but you know how I get so excited. I just want to bring Brad in and let you guys, let's get this down and dirty and get to know him. I know that you're going to love him if you don't know him already. You guys, Brad Trackman.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I'm well. How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm telling you, I'm going to get rid of that so we can see you better. That set is hilarious. Where did the material for that one come from?
You know, that one was from frustration. Like I had a list of things that frustrated me, and then I originally wrote the bit. Believe it or not, and this was a little harsh. I originally wrote it. What was it? A list of things people should die and burn in hell for. And I knew that wouldn't roll with Dry Bar, and then I converted it to things that people should be ostracized at least for a day for. And believe it or not, that was really a much better way of going about it. It's interesting because that whole Dry Bar thing, you know, I'm a clean comedian.
Yeah.
But then there's dry bar clean, which is like a whole different level.
Is it?
There's,
So
yeah. I mean, like even there's phrases you can't say. There's little innuendos you can't do. But I found that doing it that way was much better for corporate, much better for all my venues. So I was grateful for that. I liked the switch. It ended up being nice.
I love it.
Pardon me?
I was going to say, I love it. And I love how real it is. And everything in that bit, we can all relate to. I mean, we could have went on for 3 days listening to that. I mean, the people, what's with the people, Brad? They open the door, you open the door for them and you stand there, and then they come, and then the wife comes, the husband, the neighbors, the dogs comes, and no one says thank you. And you're sitting there. And did you ever see that one little clip? I don't remember where I saw it. I'm sure it's probably Facebook, but they reenacted that, and the person just like went in and grabbed the person back and threw him out the door.
I didn't see that, but that's hilarious. But it reminded me of like another situation when you're driving. I hate when people don't use their turn signals, or even more, that's applicable to what we were just talking about. If you let somebody in and they don't say thank you.
Ooh.
I mean, come on. I didn't have to. I let you at least acknowledge my kindness. Come on.
This is what I'm saying. And one of my kids the other day was talking about how somebody sneezed and she said, bless you. And the person just sat there and she goes, and you would say, thank you.
Yeah.
Simple stuff. Where has common kindness gone sometimes?
I don't know. It's like, it's insane. I was with my son the other day, yesterday. We went to a restaurant and we were getting some takeout. A lady opened the door for me and I said, thank you so much. And in the back of my mind, I realized that, you know what? My son is learning this through me.
Yeah.
It's important. It's important. I mean, I used to have an idea for a joke. I never did it, but it was like, I remember, I'm big on thank yous, by the way. I'm like a huge thank you guy because I appreciate things. And God, the joke is kind of fuzzy, but something where like, I'm blanking. Something about like when someone thanks you and then you thank them and then like it just keeps going and then like it's like the ball's in your court, but I'm totally messing it up and I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
No,
but it's true. And one of the ones that gets me, Brad, is when you say to somebody, hey, how are you doing? And they go, good. And it stops. You're supposed to say, how are you? I mean, it's just supposed to be like this. Even if you don't care, it's like a rhetorical thing. But people just say, good. And they just keep walking. And you're like, oh my God.
The name of my special is called Thanks. And that was what it was. It was like, I remember one time where it was New Year's Day and I ran into a buddy. It was just like a real, like, hey, a good friend. And it was a very like, I never run into this guy. And I said, hey, Happy New Year. And he replied back, thanks. And I was like, what?
At least he was grateful, Brad.
At least he thanked me. But, I was looking for that. Hey, Happy New Year to you too.
I know. I think we've all just kind of lost it. And it's gratitude and stuff seems to be like a lost art. And we have to find our way back to that. But I absolutely, and as I know everybody else does, all of the viewers love your comedy and your stuff. And so you write all your own stuff, right? And you're pulling it from real life.
Always from real life. I'm very autobiographical, a little self-deprecating, and also observational. I really do. I like to find nuances in life, like what you said, everybody can relate to. If it hasn't happened to them, they know somebody it has happened to. So that seems to work for me pretty well.
But it's interesting you say self-deprecating. If we can't laugh at ourselves, and I want to laugh at myself and make fun of myself before you do. I mean, it's not going to hurt as bad if I do it to myself, right?
Great way of looking at it. Yeah. I guess it's a really interesting mechanism that we do as the psychology behind some of these jokes is when they are self-deprecating, maybe that's the thing. Hey, I'm going to beat you to the punch.
Well, and I've done that my whole life and I didn't have, maybe the greatest childhood. I mean, I don't want to get into all that, but everybody has a different reason for why they go into comedy or entertainment or whatever. But I started cracking jokes like at a very early age. And I'm sure that was to compensate maybe for things that were really going on. We all go into it for different reasons. And some people are just naturally funny, and they don't have a bad history or anything. What was it for you, that light bulb moment that you said, you know what, I am so funny. I've got to get on stage and I've got to let people know this?
Well, similar to you, I feel like it was definitely, I grew up, my three older brothers are technically my half brothers, but we have the same mom. So, I always considered them my brothers. It's like, you can't get any closer than that. We shared the first apartment together, literally, my mom,
Yeah.
So, but that said, their father was a much bigger guy. My brothers are much bigger guys than I am. And even at an early age, I always had that in the back of my mind, realizing my dad's here, their dad isn't. They're bigger, I'm not. There was a difference. There was a subtle, we look different, we think differently. And I feel like my way of ingratiating myself with my family, even with my friends, because I was always a little guy, was through humor. That was the catalyst of me getting accepted from people, and I learned that I was pretty good at it. I could just make people laugh, and I enjoyed making adults laugh. When you're a little kid and you can get adults laughing, it was a lot cooler than like just your friends. You knew you had something, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
As far as stand-up was concerned, it was a really weird thing. Like I never had any intention of being a stand-up ever. I loved it. I loved watching Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, all the greats, Bill Cosby. As a matter of fact, when I was a little kid, the very first live performance I ever saw, was Bill Cosby. My dad took me as a little, I think I was like 7 or 8, to Atlantic City, and I saw him and I shook his hand, and it was just like a really cool moment. And but for me, when I was, I guess, going to college at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in Manhattan, there was a guy in my college that was so-called a stand-up comedian. And I just looked at him. I was like, whoa. Like he instantly, I got the cool factor from me. I was like, he made it known to everybody that he was a stand-up. I was like very impressed by it. So we had an assignment in college to do something out of our comfort zone. And I chose to do stand-up skit in college. And I guess it went okay. I don't even really remember. I just remember that I did that. But then after I graduated from the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, you have a degree in theater. It's really not an instant thing like, oh, I'm going to get an agent, I'm going to get a manager, I'm going to get on TV. It's far from that. So I kind of was in limbo. I was still living in New York City. Believe it or not, I was selling shoes at Bergdorf Goodman.
Really?
And I was selling shoes to like, a bunch of celebrities and stuff. And I was a young guy. I was really, really young. And I was dating this really pretty girl, really my first love. And she told me she was going to University of Delaware at the time. So there was some distance between us. And when I graduated from college and was selling shoes, she's like, what are you doing? She's like, if you don't start getting involved in something, whether it be acting, or I was a musician as well, like something, she goes, I'm going to leave you. She goes, I don't want to be with a shoe salesman. I want to be with somebody that was artistic like you are. And I took a stand-up comedy class in New York City, and that was it, and honestly, it wasn't a natural fit for me at all. I wasn't very good. I wasn't a good writer. I wasn't a good performer. I wasn't good at all. I stunk. But little by little, I just hung in there. It was just one of those things that it was an accepting community. Mm-hmm. And I just thrived eventually.
I love that.
A long journey.
And we're going to talk about that, Brad, in a second. But it's a very accepting community. Musicians gather around, comedians gather around, actors, everybody. I've talked to so many actors and so many comedians on this show, and everybody agrees that they are accepting and supportive of one another. It's really not viewed as.
Let's also say that it's not always that case. I mean,
Not always.
especially as you get better.
Yeah, not always, but it's kind of what the consensus was that, people don't really view each other as competition so much, because some, say it's a country artist and then there's a rap artist. They're very different, but appreciating everybody's craft and understanding that it is a journey. And I'm glad that you said that, because so many people will look at you, Brad, and they'll be like, oh, okay, he's been on the Late Late Show. He's been with, Robin Williams and Joan Rivers and all these people. And he's so lucky. And people need to understand that, first of all, there's nothing true about that statement, an overnight success. An overnight success takes 20 years. So, I mean, really, it's a long, long journey, and it's blood, sweat, tears. It's a lot of work. And it's every day. Sometimes you feel like you want to give up because you just didn't make it. You feel like, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I misheard the calling that I think is on my life, or maybe it's just not going to happen. And what would you say, Brad, to people like that? Because I hear that resonating in your story. It's like, no, it wasn't overnight, and it's been hard.
It definitely was not overnight. I will say this: I never, ever even I never thought of quitting. That's the weird thing. It's just one of these things that I gradually got a little bit better, I always tell people it's like you build an arsenal of material. Your material is your superpower. It's your way of becoming consistent in stand-up. I mean, that's, to me, is the most important thing. To be a professional comedian, you need some consistency. You can't just have one joke that consistently works. You have to build an arsenal of material that works in all kinds of different platforms. So being a New York comedian really builds you for that, because you're getting a different audience every day from all over the world, and a very diverse crowd. Sometimes I would play all African-American shows. Sometimes I would do all Latino shows. Sometimes I do a mixed show where there's international people. Sometimes I would do, it builds you. And little by little, if you hang in there, like I said, I mean, I can't, all I can say is this: it takes a long time, but everybody's journey is different. There's some people that are much better, much faster than I was. But at the end of the day, some people are better writers, some people are better performers, but eventually, in a perfect world, they both sync. For me, it probably took 18 years.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for 28. I really feel like every year I get better and better. Thank God. Yeah. That to me is also important. I always try to up my game as a writer and a performer. I always give myself goals. And sure enough, 28 years in, I feel like, right now is the best I've ever been. Even during this pandemic.
How has comedy affected you during the pandemic? I mean, have things changed? Have you changed up how you do things, your material? Talk about that.
Well, you have to pivot. It's this virtual world, which honestly, I mean, prior to us even going on camera, I was like, hey, are my eyes the right way? Because it isn't a natural thing for me anyway.
I'm noticing my eyes as we're talking, because I'm looking at you, and it's like I'm looking to the side. My camera's right here. You know what? This is just.
You look great. I don't know what I do. I'm looking at me, and I'm like, well, my eyes aren't even.
No, you look fine. But we're over here doing our own technology. I don't have producers behind me. We're winging this whole thing, and this is what I was saying to you before. Everybody is forgiving of that. We're all learning, I think, during all of this, to be very fluid, very flexible, and understanding. And we're trying to get material out during a time that we've never faced before. And that's what I love about this show too. One of the things I love about this show, and we said this when we were in the green room, is I wanted people to learn more about you and understand you and what drives you. And it's great. We see you on stage and it's funny and we're having this great time. You're entertaining us. You're feeding into us. But I want people, when my guests come on, to say, wow, I'm falling in love with this person for different reasons. And I said this before on the show. I'll say it again. Maybe people missed it. I'll just give another example. There was an incredibly famous singer and songwriter, and the stuff is obviously very good. His material is very good. He's been famous for many, many years. I'm not going to say too much. I don't want to give it away, but I never was into it. Okay. I thought I could appreciate his craft and all that, but it wasn't my style and whatever. Well, there was a movie made about this particular person. Once I watched the movie, Brad, I fell head over heels in love with this person for who they are, their struggles, what they've gone through. Then I appreciated their craft even more and their music. And it was tremendous. And so that was one of the reasons for this show. There's many, but that was one huge one, because people who may not know you, which I can't imagine, but if they didn't,
I can.
what?
There's a million other comedians that are
But
further
listen,
ahead than me, but you know, I just plug along. I enjoy what I do, and I do knock on desk. I do make a decent living. Even during the pandemic, I've been so blessed that I've been able to work doing this virtual thing, and even socially distanced performances. I'm at a Playhouse theater this evening in Pennsylvania, and you know, there's not many comics that are working right now, so I feel really grateful that I'm able to do these things.
And you've done other things, because you got a book deal and you have a book out, and it is, I have the name of it right here. It's
Suspended.
Permanently suspended. Let's talk about that, because that's a little unexpected.
That was a really cool thing that happened. Prior to writing the book, I was like a kind of a ghostwriter, but specifically hired by a literary agent to implement humor into other authors' books. And this isn't like a known thing. I just got lucky. I was doing a showcase in Los Angeles. There was an agent that saw me, and she said, "You are a really concise writer." And she goes, "I really like what you do. I was wondering if we could do some business where I have some authors that could use a little, you know, punching up in regards to humor. If you could implement some humor in different places of their work, I could pay you." And I was like, "I'm in." And I did that for a couple of years with this agent. And out of nowhere, she just called me up and she's like, "Hey, there's a guy out in New York City. I don't know if you ever heard of Opie and Anthony." And I was like, "Oh, yeah." You know, was at one point, I mean, it rivaled Howard Stern. I mean, it was like a big deal, and also a launching pad for a lot of big successful comedians like Bill Burr and Patrice O'Neill and a bunch. I can't think of any right now, but you know, it was Rich Voss and a bunch of people. But anyway, she said, "He's looking for a writer. I can set up a meeting with him." And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to do it." Now, granted, I never listened to the show. Never really. I mean, I lived in New York City, but I never really listened to the show. I didn't know much about this particular guy, who is Anthony Cumia, who is a very controversial guy. He had a lot of baggage. I mean, a lot of negative press, a lot of stuff with, you know, was associated with abuse with a girl. He was with racism and all this stuff. And I took myself out of that, and I just wanted to meet him, and I wanted to listen. Bottom line is, his story is an amazing story. It's a rags to literally riches, because he became a multi-millionaire, very, very well known and successful. But it's an interesting story, and it's a funny story. He's a funny guy, and whether you love him or hate him, the story itself, I was very proud of the story. So
this is fantastic. So this is a book for our viewers. You guys need to pick this up. Permanently Suspended by Brad Trackman, and it is the life of Anthony Cumia, and right, and it's a biography of him. So pick that up. Make sure you guys, I know, Brad, your stuff is running across the ticker, bradtrackman.com. We want to make sure that everybody follows him on all of his social media outlets as well. He's on Facebook. He's everywhere. Brad, what's coming up next for you? Beside the show, the one we just talked about?
Yeah, just doing some gigs. Like I said, I love these virtual gigs, believe it or not, because I've learned to really like them because when you get done, you're at home. It's so great. And I've actually been getting some really decent money doing them. So doing them, I'm gonna shoot for America's Got Talent this year. I'm gonna see if I can get on that. I have my representation, gonna try to get me on. I don't know. They usually need a good backstory. It seems like the people that propel or that do well on that show have an interesting story, whether they have some kind of disability, whether there's the one comedian had a disability with his hands. Another one was a stutter. And it just seems like I don't really have a crazy backstory, but I am a comedian that could use that exposure and that lift from that show that it generates. I mean,
yeah, but you started as a shoe salesman. I mean, granted, it was Bergdorf Goodman. Now, Bergdorf Goodman was an awesome story. Is an awesome. That was my first credit card I ever had. Yeah. I don't even know. I was living in California. They sent me an application, and I was like, "What's Bergdorf Goodman?" Yeah, okay, I'll do it, and I did. But it's an amazing store. So, or is it still there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So see, I don't know, but it was back in the day, and I was so thrilled with my credit card. I was amazed. But yeah, I mean, lots of great things, and I mean, you don't necessarily have to have a backstory. If your agent's going to call and see, I can't wait to see if that happens. That'll be cool.
Fingers crossed. I really feel that my humor. I do a lot of short. I mean, not the clip that you played just there. That's actually not a typical kind of bit that I do. I'm usually very short, concise, set up punch. But I think that does well for TV and for a platform like AGT. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think you would be fantastic. I can't wait to hear what happens with that. I know everybody will be rooting for you. But let's go ahead and we're going to wrap up. I want to play one more clip at the back end of this of you, another one from Dry Bar. And of course, thank you to Dry Bar Comedy for always being so gracious and allowing us to use all of the clips from the comedians that come on that show. So, or from Dry Bar. I appreciate that. Make sure you guys do go to Dry Bar Comedy on Facebook and like them. Fantastic talent coming out of there. Brad, what would be one last thing would you say to anybody getting ready who wants to do what you do, people that are up and coming? What would be your best piece of advice for them?
I would say always be real to who you are, because the audiences can sense that. So in other words, like, I'll just give you a quick little story. I had a mentor in stand-up, wonderful, incredible comedian by the name of Willie Barcena. Now, Willie, back then when he was my mentor, he good-looking Mexican guy, super, suave, cool, very, very funny. And at that time, he had already been on HBO, had a couple development deals for his own sitcom. Since then, he's been on, with Jay Leno, he was on his show, on The Tonight Show, more than any other comic during his reign. He has a Netflix special, a Showtime special, and a Netflix special. Did I say that? Yeah, so HBO, Netflix. Yeah, he's done so much stuff. So early in my career, I was fortunate that I would open for him all the time. And we were drinking one time. And we're drinking. And he looks at me, and he's Mexican. He goes, "Hey, bro, I got to say something, but I don't want to hurt your feelings." And I go, "Go ahead, man. Tell me." He goes, "You're not cool." He goes, "You're trying to be me on stage." And he goes, "You're not." He goes, "You grew up in a cul-de-sac. I grew up in a garage where my mom was a maid." He goes, you have to be who you are. Day and night. Like, I really listened to him after I got done wiping my tears.
Yeah.
No, honestly, it resonated. He was like, you have to be who you really are. And when I started writing about my inadequacies, my shortcomings, the real Brad Trackman, the things that you don't sometimes like to share with people, that's when my career took off.
That's perfect. That's the best piece of advice, because we say this all the time, and people, I say it on this show all the time. We've got to stop trying to fake it till we make it, and make it so we don't have to fake it. Just really be our authentic self, our true self. That's where that's what, I'm not going to say this correctly, but that's our sweet spot. Be exactly who we are.
It's like, yeah, you have to get to a place to finally get to who you really are, and then it explodes. It's like, I had this whole perception of trying to be something I wasn't when I first started doing stand-up. I wanted to be cool. I wanted girls to like me. I wanted all this stuff. But when I actually just became honest, that is when everything happened. Like, whatever successes I've had, it's been because of being true.
Absolutely. You guys heard it here. We've been visited today by the hilarious and wonderful and just epically talented Brad Trackman.
You're so sweet, Joanne. Thank you for letting me be on your show, and it's great. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I hope you come back and see us. We're going to play another clip from Dry Bar, but thank you, Brad. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. You guys, how amazing is that? He's so wonderful. And I just love the message that is being sent out. And he's absolutely right. You know, be exactly who you are. What happens is we're over here trying to fake it till we make it. We're trying to pretend to be somebody we're not. And we're wondering maybe why it's not happening for us. But the reality is when we start being true to ourselves, being our authentic selves, being the person that our small self always knew it wanted to be, that person, the person we're called to be, the right people become attracted to us. We begin to be surrounded by people who see how awesome we truly are, which in fact we all are. So that's the advice for today. I'm going to play a clip really quick. Again, thank you to all of our sponsors. Thank you to Dry Bar Comedy. Thank you to Brad Trackman. Hang tight. We're going to play this clip until Wednesday. I think we're coming on Wednesday. You guys forgive me. We're normally Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but y'all know that I had pneumonia and the COVID at the same time. I don't want to get into the details, so I'm kind of getting, just let's let it go. Let it go. We're going to get back a little slow, okay, so that we don't push it and like I'll fall out of the chair. So I'm not going to do it. Any hoozle, any wheezy. We're going to do that. We're going to see you next time. Until then, be loving, be humble, be kind, and as always, lead with love, my friends. You can't go wrong. Let's go ahead and we're going to play this clip. Here we go. I'll see you next time.
So we've got some cute couples here. I always wonder what attracts one person to another person. I read an article had the top 10 likes and dislikes of women. Number one like, ladies, was intelligence. Come on. Come on. I've never heard a woman go, ooh, read me a word problem. Come on, I want you to treat me like an illiterate. Number one dislike, short guys. This is true. You never hear a woman, yeah, I like a man that fits on my lap. I do. I find it sexy when a guy sits on a bus and his feet can't touch the ground. They just kick a lot. They dangle. It's sexy. I'm short. I'm a short guy. Remember class photos? I was always the kid in the front row holding the sign Indian style. Remember that, dude? Take the picture. I'm a lefty, too. That was always difficult being a left-hander. We had green scissors, everybody. Yeah, the green scissors. Green handles. It was very awkward asking for those. I need the green scissors! Me, Brad, if they didn't have green scissors, we'd use regular scissors upside down. Need some help over here? This is impossible. This is not cutting. How about the eraser-made pen? Forget about iPads, flat-screen TVs. A pen that erased. Blew your mind. But not if you're left-handed. I would write and erase it with my own hand. Teacher's like, where's your work? You're not going to believe this. My hand ate my homework.